Hello, everyone. Today's program begins with breaking news that has shocked the global aviation community. At 2:10 p.m. local time on November 21st, a deafening roar erupted over the Dubai Airshow in the United Arab Emirates. An Indian-made Tejas LCA fighter jet, performing an aerial stunt, suddenly lost control and plummeted toward the ground at a near-vertical angle. It immediately detonated in a violent explosion. Black smoke billowed and rose into the clear sky above the Persian Gulf, etching an indelible image into the minds of all present. More heartbreakingly, the pilot failed to eject successfully and tragically lost his life. As we now revisit this tragedy, it becomes clear this was far from an isolated aviation incident. From the details at the crash site to the trajectory of India's defense industry, from recent global aviation safety incidents to the broader ecosystem of international air shows, this crash acts as a prism, reflecting multiple critical issues: technical reliability, industrial system development, and safety management standards. Next, we will systematically deconstruct the underlying logic behind this incident. First, let us rewind to the moment the accident occurred and reconstruct the complete sequence of events. According to exclusive on-site reporting by CCTV's Dubai correspondent, November 21st marked the final day of this year's Dubai Airshow and featured the most intensive flight demonstrations. 13 world-class aerobatic teams were scheduled to perform, with India's Tejas fighter jet slated as the third act in the afternoon lineup, the centerpiece of India's military exhibition. Witness videos show the Tejas jet executing a series of consecutive aerobatic maneuvers just before the crash, first completing a half-roll inverted maneuver, then attempting to pull up into the preparatory position for a cobra maneuver. At that moment, the aircraft's attitude suddenly became abnormal, its wings began violently shaking, and the fuselage lost balance before plunging rapidly downward. The final communication between ground control and the pilot recorded the pilot urgently reporting flight control system anomaly, unable to maintain attitude, after which contact was lost. Just 8 seconds later, the aircraft crashed into the ground. The resulting shockwave even blew off the canopy of a spectator stand over 100 meters away. Panicked spectators evacuated, plunging the once bustling airshow venue into chaos. Following the accident, Dubai Airshow's emergency response system activated immediately. 6 fire trucks and 2 medical helicopters arrived at the crash site within 3 minutes. Firefighters swiftly extinguished the flames using foam extinguishing agents, while medical personnel conducted a comprehensive search and rescue operation. Tragically, after nearly 20 minutes of examination, the pilot was confirmed deceased. The UAE Ministry of Defense issued a statement that evening expressing condolences for the deceased pilot and confirming no ground casualties. The Indian Air Force subsequently announced the formation of a 3-member investigation committee comprising major generals to thoroughly examine the cause of the accident. It also pledged to provide full compensation and subsequent settlement support to the pilot's family. This incident directly led to adjustments in the Dubai Airshow's subsequent activities. All 10 scheduled flight demonstrations were cancelled. And the grand finale performances by teams like Russia's Sokol and the UAE's Knights were abruptly concluded after brief low-altitude flybys. More notably, this marks the second consecutive Dubai Airshow where the Tejas fighter jet has experienced major issues. At the 2023 Airshow, both the primary and backup aircraft brought by India suffered hydraulic system failures and engine alerts, ultimately preventing them from completing their performances. Moreover, just 1 day before this accident, social media circulated videos showing the Tejas leaking oil during rehearsals. The Indian exhibitors promptly issued a statement dismissing the reports as false information and malicious smear campaigns by competitors. Little did they know that tragedy would strike the very next day. Some may wonder, why does the Tejas, touted as India's indigenous pride after 33 years of development, suffer such frequent malfunctions? To answer this, we must examine the fighter's history. The Tejas development program began in 1983 when the Indian government proposed building a fully indigenous third-generation fighter to replace aging MiG-21s and reduce reliance on foreign equipment. Named the Light Combat Aircraft (LCA) project, It was spearheaded by the Indian Defence Research and Development Organisation, DRDO, with Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, HAL, responsible for development. However, the gap between ambition and reality proved far greater than anticipated. From its inception in 1983 to its formal entry into service in 2016, the Tejas development spanned an unprecedented 33 years, setting a world record for the longest development cycle of any third-generation fighter. More critically, the claim of complete autonomy proved largely illusory. According to a 2024 report by India's Comptroller and Auditor General, the Tejas achieved only 35% indigenous content. Its core engine relies on the American General Electric F-404. Its radar system comes from Israel's ELTA, its flight control system's core chips are imported, and even its composite airframe materials are sourced from France. This patchwork of international brand components directly sowed the seeds for subsequent reliability issues. The most glaring flaw lies in the flight control system. In March 2024, during a tri-service joint exercise in India, a Tejas crashed due to flight control system failure. The pilot successfully ejected thanks to his extensive experience. Subsequent investigations revealed that compatibility issues between imported chips and domestic software caused signal delays during high-G maneuvers, leading to loss of attitude control. The Dubai Airshow incident, based on preliminary wreckage analysis, similarly points to flight control system anomalies. Data from the aircraft's flight control computer revealed a 0.3-second delay in control signals for the elevator and ailerons just before the crash, a delay potentially fatal during aerobatic maneuvers. Beyond technical issues, the Tejas fighter's predicament reflects systemic flaws within India's defense industry. This was starkly illustrated in the recent shopping bag incident that sparked widespread debate. During the Dubai Airshow, journalists captured Indian ground crew using ordinary shopping bags to catch fuel leaks from the Tejas. This absurd scene was mockingly dubbed by netizens as military ambitions propped up by shopping bags. This detail starkly exposes three core problems within India's defense industry. First is the fragmented industrial chain and lack of core technologies. Despite India's ambitious military expansion blueprint, including building the 65,000-ton nuclear-powered aircraft carrier INS Vishal, mass-producing 500 hypersonic missiles, and achieving $6 billion in arms exports by 2029, all these plans are constrained by bottlenecks in core technologies. Take the nuclear carrier project as an example. India initially sought to import electromagnetic catapult technology from the United States. After being denied, its indigenous electromagnetic catapult system development has yet to achieve breakthroughs. The engine issues plaguing the Tejas fighter jet are even more acute. In 2025, India received only 3 engines from General Electric, leaving 6 fully assembled aircraft grounded and unable to be delivered. This reality of reliance on imported core components while domestic alternatives lag behind keeps India's defense industry stuck at the level of an assembly plant rather than a true manufacturing powerhouse. The development journey of India's Arjun main battle tank is even more illustrative. This tank, whose development began in the 1970s, still hasn't achieved large-scale deployment. The initial design called for a 90% indigenization rate, but actual mass production achieved less than 50%. Critical components like the engine, fire control system, and armor materials all rely on imports. A 2024 Indian Army test report revealed the Arjun's failure rate in desert conditions reached 40%, requiring major overhauls after just 500 kilometers, far below the Army's 1,000-kilometer standard. Left with no alternative, the Indian Army continued procuring Russian T-90 tanks, relegating the Arjun to a parade-only vehicle. Second is the crisis of trust between the military and defense contractors. Due to frequent reliability issues, the Indian military has extremely low confidence in domestically produced equipment. During the May 2025 India-Pakistan air battle, the Indian Air Force explicitly refused to deploy Tejas fighters, instead relying on French-imported Rafale fighters and Russian Su-30 Mki fighters. A confidential internal IAF report revealed that the Tejas's routine maintenance costs are 1.8 times higher than those of the Rafale, while its failure rate is 3 times that of the French fighter. This extremely poor cost-effectiveness has led the Indian military to favor imported equipment even under government pressure to prioritize domestically produced gear. Just 3 months before this Dubai Airshow crash, India's Ministry of Defense signed a $22.6 billion contract with France's Dassault Aviation for 114 Rafale fighters. A stark contrast to the government's self-reliance rhetoric. India's indigenous submarine program similarly exposes this trust crisis. During sea trials in 2023, the domestically developed Shishimar-class submarine suffered repeated sonar system failures and propulsion system oil leaks, delaying delivery by 5 years. The Indian Navy originally planned to procure 6 such submarines. However, after repeated problems with the lead vessel, it decisively reduced the order quantity and instead ordered 4 Type 214 submarines from Germany's ThyssenKrupp. This strategy of relying on domestically produced equipment for the main role while using imported equipment for security further weakens the development momentum of domestic equipment. Third is the inefficiency of the bureaucratic system and the imbalance in resource allocation. Despite India's defense budget reaching 551.6 billion yuan, 60% is allocated to personnel salaries and pensions, leaving less than 40% for equipment R&D and upgrades. More critically, the 3 services operate independently in procurement, lacking coordinated planning. The Navy's nuclear aircraft carrier program, Army's Future Combat Vehicle project, and Air Force's hypersonic missile initiative suffer from fragmented resource integration and even redundant development efforts. The inefficiency of the bureaucratic system compounds these issues. Industrial land approvals take an average of 18 months, while tax incentives for foreign companies change frequently. This led to a 96.5% plunge in net foreign investment in India's defense sector by 2025, with 3,000 foreign companies withdrawing, further exacerbating R&D and production challenges. The chaotic management of India's defense enterprises is equally alarming. Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, HAL, India's largest aircraft manufacturer, has repeatedly faced exposure of severe quality control issues in recent years. A 2024 audit report revealed that the qualification rate for components produced by HAL for the Tejas fighter jet was only 78%, far below the internationally accepted standard of 95%. More absurdly, workers resorted to gluing loose components to meet deadlines, while quality inspectors turned a blind eye. This management philosophy of prioritizing speed over quality directly undermines equipment reliability. The Tejas crash not only laid bare India's defense industry shortcomings but also triggered a chain reaction in the international arms market. India's participation in the Dubai Airshow with the Tejas was primarily aimed at promoting the aircraft and securing international orders. Previously, India had marketed the Tejas to countries like Argentina, Vietnam, and Egypt, attempting to capture markets through its low-cost advantage, its quoted price being roughly half that of comparable Western fighters. However, the accident caused a complete reversal in the attitudes of these potential customers. In a post-accident media interview, the Chief of Staff of the Argentine Air Force explicitly stated that the country would reassess its Tejas procurement plan, potentially shifting its original order for 12 aircraft toward Pakistan's JF-17 Thunder fighter. Meanwhile, Vietnam's Ministry of Defense announced the suspension of technical negotiations with India regarding the Tejas, prioritizing cooperation with Russia on the Su-75 fighter. In stark contrast, at this year's Dubai Airshow, Pakistan's JF-17 Block 3 fighter secured a $4.6 billion order from Azerbaijan through its stable performance and mature technology. A record-breaking figure for Pakistan's arms exports. Adding to the irony, on the very day the Tejas crashed, another star product of India's defense industry, the Akash surface-to-air missile, failed again during testing in Bangladesh. This missile, which India had pinned high hopes on, failed to hit the target drone 3 times in a row during live-fire tests organized by the Bangladeshi military. Meanwhile, the Russian S-400 missile tested concurrently achieved 100% accuracy. This series of failures makes India's goal of reaching $6 billion in arms exports by 2029 increasingly elusive. Of course, we cannot attribute all problems solely to India's defense industry. Aerobatic displays inherently carry extremely high risks, a fact universally acknowledged globally. As recently as April 2025, during the Dayton Airshow in the United States, an F-16 fighter jet experienced an engine shutdown mid-stunt. The pilot made an emergency decision within just 1.2 seconds and successfully executed a forced landing. At the time, the aircraft was performing a low-altitude pass at just 150 meters. Upon detecting the malfunction, the pilot immediately pushed back the throttle to descend, using wing lift to adjust the aircraft's attitude. The fighter ultimately landed safely in the emergency landing zone at the runway's end, sustaining only minor damage while the pilot emerged unscathed. Post-incident analysis revealed two critical factors behind this successful resolution. First, the F-16's mature emergency power system, after the main engine shutdown. The auxiliary power unit automatically activated within 0.5 seconds, sustaining power to the flight control systems. Second, the pilot's extensive experience in handling emergency situations. With 2,500 hours of flight experience, including 500 hours of simulated emergency training, this routine preparation enabled him to respond calmly in the critical moment. This case offers crucial insights for aviation safety. Equipment redundancy and pilot professionalism are the two key elements in resolving crises. Similarly, during the 2025 Farnborough Airshow in the UK, a Typhoon fighter experienced hydraulic system failure during a demonstration, preventing normal landing gear deployment. After consulting with ground control, the pilot opted for a belly landing. The Airshow emergency team cleared the runway and laid down foam within 5 minutes, enabling a successful forced landing and the pilot's safe evacuation. This incident underscores the critical importance of a mature airshow emergency response system. It also demonstrates that even when unexpected situations arise, comprehensive contingency plans and efficient execution can minimize losses. These international cases stand in stark contrast to the crash of India's Tejas fighter jet, revealing the core logic of aviation safety. Safety is never determined by a single factor, but rather by the organic integration of equipment reliability, personnel training standards, and emergency response systems. According to statistics from the International Aeronautical Federation, the accident rate for airshow flight demonstrations globally is approximately 0.3 incidents per 1,000 performances. Among these, 80% of accidents are linked to two factors: sudden equipment failures and pilot decision errors. In the case of India's Tejas, where known flight control system defects coexisted with inadequate contingency response plans, the accident was essentially foreshadowed. Translated with dpel.com, free version. The shortcomings in the Indian Air Force's training system are equally significant. According to a 2024 report by India's Ministry of Defence, Indian Air Force pilots log an average of only 120 flight hours annually, far below the 240 hours of the U.S. Air Force and the 180 hours of the Russian Air Force. More critically, less than 10% of training time is dedicated to simulated emergency scenarios, with most instruction still focused on basic flight maneuvers. In the Dubai Airshow incident, after detecting flight control system anomalies, the pilot failed to implement timely and effective emergency procedures. Instead, they chose to persist in attempting aerobatic maneuvers, a critical decision error that directly precipitated the tragedy. Beyond equipment and personnel factors, the airshow's safety management system is equally indispensable. While emergency response at this Dubai Airshow was prompt, it also exposed certain vulnerabilities. According to eyewitness accounts, evacuation routes in certain areas were obstructed by temporary exhibition booths after the accident, slowing spectator dispersal. Additionally, overlapping access routes for emergency vehicles hindered initial firefighting efficiency. In contrast, the June 2025 Paris Air Show demonstrated greater maturity. When a Mirage 2000 fighter jet experienced an engine warning during its performance, the pilot executed an emergency landing. The Airshow's Emergency Command Center activated a Level 3 response within 1 minute. Rescue vehicles accessed the scene via dedicated lanes, while spectators evacuated orderly under volunteer guidance. The entire process unfolded without chaos. The core of Paris Airshow's safety management lies in its comprehensive chain-based system: pre-event prevention, during-event response, post-event review. Preventively, they conduct at least 3 rounds of ground inspections on all participating aircraft, focusing on critical components like engines and flight control systems. Aircraft with prior fault records are strictly barred from participation. During events, 5 emergency rescue zones are established, each equipped with dedicated firefighting, medical, and evacuation teams to ensure arrival at the scene within 3 minutes. Post-event, a safety debriefing meeting is convened within 24 hours to analyze incident causes and update safety protocols. In contrast, India's Tejas fighter jet underwent only 1 round of ground inspections before participating in the Dubai Airshow, with no specialized contingency plans developed for its historical fault records, undoubtedly increasing accident risks. From a broader perspective, the Tejas crash also reflects the diverging trends in global aviation industry development. Currently, the global aviation sector is caught in a tug-of-war between self-reliance and globalization. On one hand, aviation powerhouses like the United States, Russia, and France are accelerating the independent development of core technologies, from engines and radars to flight control systems, to achieve full industrial chain autonomy and control. On the other hand, some nations attempt to rapidly enhance their military capabilities through a global procurement plus local assembly model. However, this approach often falls into the trap of easy assembly, difficult integration, with India serving as the most typical example. Take the US F-35 fighter jet as an example. From development to operational deployment, it took only 15 years. Although it adopted a global collaboration model, core technologies remain firmly under American control. Key components like Pratt & Whitney's F-135 engine and Northrop Grumman's active phased array radar were independently developed, ensuring the equipment's reliability and performance advantages. By 2025, global deliveries of the F-35 exceeded 1,000 units with a failure rate of just 2.3%, cementing its status as a blockbuster product in the international arms market. In stark contrast, India's Tejas fighter jet, with its 33-year development cycle and 35% indigenization rate, struggles to justify its positioning as a third-generation fighter. Russia's Su-57 fighter jet similarly demonstrates formidable indigenous R&D capabilities. Despite Western sanctions, Russia leveraged its industrial base to achieve breakthroughs in core technologies including engines, stealth materials, and avionics systems. In 2025, the Su-57 entered service with the Russian Aerospace Forces and secured a $7.5 billion procurement order from Turkey. This self-reliance enables Russia to maintain competitiveness in the international arms trade market. This divergence is even more pronounced in the international arms trade market. According to data from the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, SIPRI, the top 5 global arms exporters in 2024 were the United States, Russia, China, France, and Germany, collectively accounting for 85% of the world's total arms exports. These nations share the common trait of possessing complete defense industrial chains and core technological autonomy. Emerging arms exporters like India, while securing sporadic orders through low-cost strategies, struggle to establish long-term competitiveness internationally due to their lack of core technological support and reliable after-sales service. India's defense exports also face challenges stemming from an inadequate after-sales support system. In 2024, 4 Polaris helicopters purchased by Sri Lanka from India suffered engine failures. When the Sri Lankan military requested maintenance services from India, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, HAL, was unable to provide qualified spare parts, leaving the helicopters idle for 6 months. This incident severely damaged India's defense industry reputation, prompting several countries that had previously expressed interest in procuring Indian equipment to cancel their cooperation plans. Returning to the recent Tejas fighter crash, India's investigation committee has launched a thorough inquiry into the cause. Preliminary focus centers on three areas: software vulnerabilities in the flight control system, engine operational status, and pilot procedures. According to the Indian Air Force's timeline, findings are expected within 30 days. Regardless of the outcome, this accident serves as a stark warning to India's defense industry. Military ambitions require robust industrial infrastructure. Without solid technological foundations and comprehensive quality control, even the grandest blueprints remain mere castles in the air. In fact, the Indian government is not unaware of these challenges. In 2023, Prime Minister Modi launched the Make in India 2.0 initiative, explicitly designating defense manufacturing as a priority sector with a $120 billion investment plan for core technology (R&D) and industrial chain development. Yet actual progress has fallen short of expectations. Talent shortages and misappropriation of funds have forced delays in multiple key projects, including the Tejas fighter upgrade and indigenous engine development programs. India's defense sector faces a particularly acute talent shortage. According to the Indian Aeronautical Development Agency, 40% of its core R&D personnel possess overseas work experience, with an attrition rate as high as 25%. As domestic Indian companies lag significantly behind Western counterparts in salary levels and R&D environments, numerous top talents have defected to international aviation giants like Boeing and Airbus. This exodus has left India's defense R&D projects lacking critical technological support. Simultaneously, this incident serves as a critical warning for global aviation safety. For airshow organizers, strict adherence to aircraft eligibility standards is imperative, with enhanced inspections for models with prior malfunction records. For defense contractors, reliability remains the lifeline of equipment. Quality must never be sacrificed for schedule or cost. For pilots, routine training in emergency procedures and thorough familiarity with contingency plans are crucial, serving as the final line of defense against crises. The international aviation community has also paid close attention to this incident. Following the accident, the International Aeronautical Federation issued a statement urging countries to strengthen airshow safety management, establish unified standards for aircraft participation, and develop pilot certification systems. The organization also announced it would provide technical support to India to assist in investigating the cause of the accident and help improve its aviation safety management system. As we conclude this program, let us once again express our deepest condolences to the pilots who lost their lives. Every pilot is a guardian of the skies, embodying responsibility and courage with their lives. This accident leaves us not only with a sigh but also with profound reflections on technological advancement, industrial development, and safety management. There are no shortcuts in military-industrial development. Only by diligently mastering core technologies and meticulously controlling quality can we truly achieve the leap from manufacturing to innovation. Moving forward, we will continue to monitor the progress of the Indian Investigation Committee and the subsequent safety rectification measures at the Dubai Airshow. If you have insights or perspectives on aviation safety or military industry development, we welcome your engagement through our official platforms.